So welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Kathi Norman, and this webinar is about how we can thwart loneliness in the time of COVID. I have two helpers here that are going to introduce themselves momentarily. We do want to send a special thank you to Lisa Sampson and Sharon Densger, who helped to orchestrate the MAPP group. MAPP are graduates of Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. I graduated with Carrie and Elizabeth, and Lisa and Sharon are both graduates of MAPP. And so we've all come together to create these webinars and hopefully be helpful during this pandemic. Elizabeth, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Kathi. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Jennings. Kathi and I graduated from MAPP the same year, and I'm joining from Washington, D.C., where I work to include positive psychology within disability services.
Carrie?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carrie Sanderson. I was lucky enough to graduate from the MAPP program at Penn with these two lovely ladies. I'm currently the Director of Career and Academic Advising at Gateway Community College in Phoenix.
All right, thank you. All right, so I put this as my very first panel because these two doctors inspired me to do the work that I'm doing, and especially with the loneliness today. Dr. Vivek Murthy is the 19th Surgeon General of the United States. Dr. Murthy started to notice in his practice that he was seeing patients that had psychological issues, loneliness, and that loneliness really was playing a role in their physical health. He started the promotion of research regarding loneliness, and therefore I have a robust amount of information that helps inform me as to how loneliness affects our health. In addition to that, we have Dr. Martin Seligman, Marty. He is an inspiration for me because he's the father of positive psychology, and I've been practicing medicines for 35 years. And during that time, initially as a respiratory technician and then as a physician assistant, but I began to notice pretty quickly that we were really missing something. And while patients wanted prescriptions, I knew that they really were coming in with psychological diagnoses, and it certainly could be anxiety, depression, loneliness, and they really didn't need medications for that per se. So I searched and searched, and I wondered, how could I work that out into my, how do I find something in my practice that would really work? It has to be evidence-based, and then I met positive psychology. It became evidence-based, and now I'm combining my practice of medicine with the well-being research factors that influence our well-being and health and help people to flourish, and that was with Dr. Seligman's work, among many others that you'll see. Starting out, I've already said thank you to the audience for being here and listening, but I also want to thank Lisa, Sharon, Elizabeth, and Carrie for creating this and then supporting me. But I also want to show acknowledgement to people that are out there suffering. We are now quarantined. We are put in houses where we have a physical distancing going on, and if we allow it, we could definitely end up being depressed, having some anxiety about what's going on and uncertainty. So you're not alone, and I want to acknowledge that. There's people that love you, will help you, and will listen to you. I especially want to say that if you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself and it's gotten to that point, I wanted to put the suicide prevention line on my presentation today, just in case anybody feels like they would need that, or a friend might need that. So we talk a lot about positive psychology and how I've used that in the practice of medicine. Roy Baumeister has researched factors that influence how human beings socialize, work together. And this has been 4 decades of work, so over 40 years of his work. And you can see here that he's found that human beings are really social human beings. We need each other, and we're a little bit different than animals in that animals use their 5 senses to make sense of the world, where we look at each other to make sense of the world. Now, social connection is so important in human life, but if we get rejected, it really strikes us to our core. So we are socially isolated, physically isolated right now, but what I chose to do is to start going out into the neighborhoods, and I live in the Portland, Oregon area where there are huge amounts of, mountainous trails, and I can walk to them. So the other day, after being socially isolated, physically isolated for a couple or more weeks, I was really needing to just really interact. And I was on a trail that was somewhat remote, but intersected with some roads. So I see in the distance this caravan of cars and vans, and they were decorated with balloons, and some folks had been creative in putting happy birthday, and using construction paper and taping it on the side of a van. And as I'm walking closer, there's bright colors, there's people and decorations, and I think, this is just this moment I'll get to say hi to somebody and just have like that positive feedback that we really need right now. And as I got closer and closer, I was really savoring what was to come. And once I got to the top where the road intersected and all the caravan were waiting, people turned away from me. People stepped off of the sidewalk, and they just turned their heads, and they wouldn't engage. Now, I chose not to engage with them because I felt like this was coming from fear and a place of unknowing, and so I wanted to respect that. But boy, that can definitely be a slight if we allow it to be. It wasn't rejection, it was just a component of fear that we're going through, all of us right now, with the unknown. I decided to do just a little bit of research on the 1918 pandemic, the Spanish flu, and I wanted to see if there were any correlations or I could extract any information that could be helpful for us right now. And what I found was there is still a surviving Mr. Sardo, and one of the things that he said is that when the flu was spreading and all these restrictions were coming along, it made everybody really afraid to go see anybody. And so that's, kind of what was happening on the trail when everybody was turning and stepping away. I've had, when I've been on the trail, parents pull their children away from me physically when I'm coming. Mr. Sardo also explains how this has changed society, and that how we really became individualistic at that time. I think actually social media made us a lot more individual. If we're going to talk about loneliness, we just have to define it. From the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, we see that they believe that loneliness is being without company, is being cut off from others, not frequented by human beings. Well, I'd like to say that you can be in a crowd, you can be with your family, your relatives or friends, and you could still feel loneliness. So I want to make sure that's very clear. It's not that we're around people, it's that meaningful social interactions that we have with other people that really count. So in Dr. Vivek Murthy's work that we learned about earlier, they found the top predictors of loneliness were the size and the diversity of the person's social network. And I would add to that, it's the quality of your friends. Are they circle of angels? Are they like my Elizabeth and Carrie, who would pick up a phone and be there for me all the time? Also being physically isolated. Now that's what's going on right now. We are physically isolated in the time of COVID. And then there are some other predictors of people being more prone to being lonely, and that's with age, whether or not they are predisposed or already have depression, kind of where they're living at, if they have anxiety, and really just generally their overall health. So I live in the Portland metro area, and we're really well known for being weird. I'm a transplant, so I would like to think I'm not weird, but maybe Carrie and Elizabeth might say I am, I don't know. I wanted to do a public service announcement because Oregon has done a really, really good job of flattening the curve. We have no fear at this point of needing ICU beds or ventilators, like at a negative. We have enough. We have plenty here. And so we're staying home and it's saving lives. Saying that, I also want to just mention that I'm seeing things on like Facebook, and this is the medical part of me coming out, people using bandanas and cotton to make masks and they think they're safe. The virus goes down to like 0.1 micron, which cotton isn't going to be helpful to filter out. So just kind of keep that in mind when we're kind of traversing the next few weeks and months, that we need to really have accurate information and know that cotton isn't going to prevent a small micron particle. So this is a little bit busy of a panel here, but I wanted to just really point out Dr. Vivek Murthy's and many others' work also. Loneliness, or really just social pain, shows up in our health. It's a public epidemic in America. We know that loneliness causes poor health, similar to, or even more so than smoking 15 cigarettes in a day, alcoholism, lack of exercise. We know that loneliness accelerates the aging process, the hippocampus in our brain. It starts shrinking. Alzheimer's has an earlier onset when people are lonely. And also in our heart and blood vessels, the cardiovascular system, it is taxed when we feel loneliness, and predisposes us for early death. It can risk our mortality up to 32% more when we experience prolonged loneliness. Now, the reason this is important is look at these statistics. We know that 2 of 5 Americans are saying that sometimes or always they feel as though their relationships don't have meaning. And then 1 in 5 Americans report that they are lonely. As I said before, this is considered a public health issue. And I just put this last little panel here to say that, we are social people, and that's evolutionary. We needed to be close to each other because those that kind of wandered off would become prey and they wouldn't survive. And so in our evolutionary process, social relationships became important for survival. So once COVID-19 became a thing, we needed to learn to adapt. Now, our adaptation is going to be long-term, and it may morph a little bit here and there, but this adaptation that we're doing right now, it's long-term. And so we need to find some coping skills so that when we're adapting, so that later down the road we're thriving, we're making really good decisions right now when we're adapting. Right now, I believe that we're in the fear component, maybe just getting a little bit out of the fear component as I see people, they're still kind of doing really silly things. Like when I'm walking, they'll get off of the trail and they'll take their coat and cover their face and go off in a corner. That's not going to help. I mean, it's out on the mountain. So there's just misinformation. There's still a lot of fear from the unknown, and that's definitely understandable. We're starting to learn how to get through this. We learned pretty quickly how to flatten the curve, and now we're just trying to grow and see how it's going to manifest next. So if I say nothing else, we've got to stay informed. We have to have good information, and when we have good information that is in a certain amount, we really have much, much better psychological functioning. We make better decisions, and we're probably going to be more likely to not be on the couch eating ice cream, and we'll be out, exercising and getting the physical stress out of our body. Limit media consumption, which leads me to, when you look at this slide, I created this slide because we do have accurate information out there in the world, but it doesn't come from certain social media and particular TV news reporting. And so just be very cautious about who we're listening to. Globally, we have the World Health Organization. It's WHO.int. They will have most up-to-date and accurate information. And they are the ones that kind of help put the guidelines out for the world, and as far as how we're going to react to this pandemic. And then in the United States, we have the National Institute of Health and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Easy Google, and their website is kept up to date, and their requirements are essentially what we follow. What's maybe more important to us as individuals is to look at our state and then our local health departments. We have state health departments and we have county health departments. Once again, being informed helps us with psychological resilience. We're going to make better decisions, and we won't have all that physical anxiety, stress, and fear that people are experiencing right now. All right, so these are pictures that I took the other day. One of them is not so far away from where the caravan turned away from me, but we need to get outside. We need to move our bodies, as my close friend Elaine O'Brien will tell us all. These pictures, were really, it made me very happy to take them. And I'm outside, I'm getting fresh air, sunshine, physical activity. It's probably one of the most important things that you can do as we're going through this COVID pandemic. I do want to say that if anybody has any questions as I go along, we have opened up the Q&A, and I think that you can actually put it in the Q&A as we go along, and then we'll answer anything at the end. Elizabeth and Carrie will field them for us. So this is a little bit of the takeoff from one of the first MAPsters, Dr. Tom Rath. He wrote a book, Eat, Move, Sleep. We do need to eat well. Right now I'm seeing and hearing a lot of people talking about binging Netflix, which is great. I haven't done it yet. I plan on doing it at some point. Nothing wrong with that, but just do it in moderation, and don't sit and eat a tub of ice cream. Popcorn's great, just as long as you, avoid the salt and all the butter on it, and then whole grains and nut snacks for your snacks. And just try and be very aware right now when we want to, through our anxiety and our fear, pop a bunch of, cupcakes, which is my nemesis, as everybody knows me. Sleep. I talk to my patients about this day in and day out. They say, Dr. Norman, I am in bed 10 and 12 hours a day, and I'm still not, feeling rest and sleep. Well, there's some factors that can influence that. For example, if you drink alcohol, it'll knock you out, but then you never get to that REM sleep. That's the restorative sleep that is associated with being healthy. In addition to that, the stress that's in our body, if we don't just kind of unwind and do some of these recommendations I've put here, then we're not getting the restorative sleep. So just keep that in mind. That might be, part of the problem if you wake up and you're still tired. So we're hearing a lot about people who are sequestered at home. Some people are doing great because they've always worked from home. I'm not one of those people. I am somebody who loves to get out. I've taken care of patients for so long. I have to have that social interaction as an extrovert that is, in the practice of medicine. I do work at a university, so I've been very fortunate to be able to do my job from home now. But many people are experiencing this for the first time. Now that I'm home more often, I started getting a little bit stir crazy. I didn't have habits that maybe some other people who work from home have, and it was really uncomfortable. So I decided to get into a routine. I decided that I was going to go ahead and do my morning walks, runs on the mountain in the mornings. We've got to get out of bed, get our showers, get dressed, and make our beds. We've got to get a routine, whatever that is for you, and then move forward with your day and decide what that looks like. Now, people who graduated from MAPP are very well familiar with power breaks. And I hear a lot of people saying, I'm tired, I'm taking naps now. And so I would encourage, even though naps are great, and maybe someday I'll take one, but power breaks are just a way to move your body, do some jumping jacks, walk around the block, do a few, dance or push-ups, but whatever that power break is to get yourself, and your blood flowing and moving along. So that's a power break. And then, keep to your schedule. The schedule actually may be for work, your job, or it could be just that you're at home, you can't go out, and you need to get some kind of a daily ritual just for you. Now, here's the good thing is that as we are adapting churches, if that's part of your regular ritual, they now have online where you can, they're piped in, you can see them, and just, it's not like the camaraderie that we have when we really go to church, the community, but you can still do your worship even though it's online. And part of adaptation too is that schools are having online classes. So I, from the first, was really disturbed that they called this social distancing. I personally think it should be called physical distancing, because I think social distancing is just a misnomer and hurtful. In order to make connections, we're having to think of new ways to do that. And so you can see in the middle of the screen are a bunch of apps that are either free, sometimes you have to pay for them. You can, in some of them, just have some type of a account, start with them, and then you can go and hang out with your friends. So what I have done with my job is that on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning, we all meet, and we just meet and just do check-ins. Hey, how you doing? But remember, we need to turn on our video. People who are very well versed in Zoom and other types of home business meetings through the internet, typically we wouldn't turn on our video and we just kind of talk. But right now what we're saying is turn on the video. We need to have that social interaction, and then actively engage, like look at people and try and make laughter part of the meetings. Let people talk if you think they need to talk. When these are larger meetings, when there's more that not everybody can turn on their video, one of the things that we're asking is that open up chat, break out into rooms, and so people can connect with each other. Even if it is a business meeting, people need to have conversations other than just business. And then, like I said, set up routine meetings, and that can be with your employer, your coworkers, with friends. I've chosen to set up routine meetings with some longtime friends that now we have time to actually talk to each other. So you might be wondering why Marion Jones, if you know her, she's a Olympian. I think it was back in the 90s when she won track and field, and she was very, very tough, and she did quite well, but she wasn't very humble. And she lied to during a federal investigation and got caught. So Marion ended up going to prison. But here's what happened, and this is the reason she's up there, is that Marion was a little bit cocky, and I was worried about her going to prison, but she found gratitude, grace. She went introspective when she was in prison. She was able to find some really good things that happened while she was in prison. Now, you and I might wonder, well, there's good things when you go to prison, because what she found was that if she had never gone to prison, she would have never had that introspection to really look at her life, tear it apart, and see what she really wanted to do. And so she's a new person. She's out helping other people based on her experience, and people are better because of what she went through. So that's why I put this picture of her up there. I admire her and what she went through. The first thing that I thought of, and I thought about being physically isolated, quarantined in my house, was puzzles. I wanted to buy puzzles, and so I've done one, and that's all, and I have 2 more, and hopefully I'll be able to do some puzzles. So I also have a guided meditation up here. This is Ajay Brahm. He is a Buddhist monk out of Perth, Australia. And I fell in love with him years ago with his just wonderful, quiet demeanor. One of the first times I was able to really slow down and pull it back in my life was when I began listening to his guided meditations and his webinars. And I actually flew over and met him. And this YouTube video, I don't know if you can see it all or not, but you can just Google Ajay Brahm, B-R-A-H-N, and I slowed down, and at one point during one of his guided meditations, I just said, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. Like, I was spiritually, emotionally, physically, I was just drained, and I was shot. And 2 minutes before that started, would never have been my thought process. And so it really helps us to get in tune with what's going on with our, mental and physical personas. So I would recommend trying to do a mindful meditation and just kind of do a check-in with your body. I've been seeing a lot of advertisements for free classes. I put a couple MOOCs up here because they're both positive psychology leaders, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson and Dr. Marty Seligman. They have Coursera classes that are up here that you can participate in for free. Quite frankly, I think today is, April 5th is the start of both of these Coursera's, the MOOCs. So if you're looking for other ways to practice positive psychology, you might want to jump on one of those. Just be creative, learn a new skill. Even though I haven't cleaned my house, I've tried. Like with Marion Jones, just be still, and like Marion Jones, what are you grateful for? So it wasn't any surprise to me that on March the 11th, the day after Italy shut down its country, that there were Italians in Siena out on their balconies, playing beautiful music, serenading each other and holding each other up. You could see wooden spoons and saucepans and whatever way they were doing it. They were out serenading themselves, and then it became a thing. The YouTube video at the top here, you're welcome if you want to try it. I think it's like 1,500 people that are singing. It's been kind of put together so that people could come together and sing. Some of the musicians and famous artists are allowing students who are never going to get to perform their last musical performance to recreate it and then put it on their Twitter account where millions of people will actually see it. Music. So I wrote a scholarly paper on music, and what I found was, oddly enough, music has no evolutionary reason to exist, but it does ubiquitously in the world. And so we can find music in all kinds of celebrations. I think most celebrations, weddings, and so on. And so I really like this saying, dear music, thank you for being there when nobody else was, signed Loneliness. This isn't my work. On Facebook, I get these as I'm part of the Action for Happiness on Facebook. I just did a little like, and then I get these. But what's really good about these right now especially is that each day it gives us something positive to do. And remember, when we are physically healthy and psychologically healthy, we're going to be a lot less likely to be lonely. And these are really good hints on here to engage with other people. For today, get active. Even if you're stuck indoors, move and stretch. We hold loneliness in our bodies, and when we use the anxiety and stress, and so when we move, it really helps us to get rid of that in our body over the long term. So that's it for me today. I am incredibly happy that you're here. Thanks for your support. Thanks, Elizabeth and Carrie. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I want to again thank Lisa Sampson, and I also want to thank Sharon Denziger. And if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Thank you, Kathi. Our first question is, what should we be mindful of when outdoors to keep safe?
Well, that's a medical question. I can tell you, so they're recommending right now that everybody wear a mask. I'm not sure what country that question is from, but I can tell you that in the United States of America, we are now recommending that everybody wear a mask. But the issue is that it can't be the N95 because that has to be saved for the medical folks. I can tell you to please do not make a cotton bandana and just wear it out and think you're safe, and then you might be a little bit more exposed. But if you cut out and put a HEPA filter in it, some people are duct taping. I don't know if that'll hurt your skin, but they're finding all kinds of skin tape that you can put on. Remember, our eyes are also an entry point because we have the mucous membrane. Even my glasses might protect me, but virus particles can still get in here. the virus is killed by UV light, and that's sunshine and being out. And, they're saying maintain 6-foot distance. And so quite frankly, when I go out, I'm not really that close to people. I may pass people on a trail. The likelihood of me breathing in one droplet or one piece of viral, particle is pretty slim to none. And so I think that fear is still out there right now. And, I really appreciate the question. You have to get out. We have got to get out. And I have spoken to my New York friends, my Philadelphia friends, just checking in to see, like, are you getting out? Tell me about that. What does it look like? And Elizabeth, tell me about, like, DC. Are people getting out?
Yes, I have seen people out. I have a dog, so I walk the dog. I've held to my hour in the morning, hour in the evening,
Wow.
keeping some good physical distancing. We pull over to the side a lot to let people pass. I have found some challenge of runners getting very close to me, but otherwise people are staying pretty good distance. And then to your point, Kathi, I've taken a hike each weekend to get more into wilderness, a little biophilia going, and be where I can spend time with my partner without us feeling like we're putting each other at risk.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. Was there a follow-up on that?
I have another question.
Do it.
Is there a difference in how introverts and extroverts experience loneliness?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I think the introverts do a lot better with loneliness, just because, for example, my girlfriend who is quite introverted, she lives in Ohio, and when this, was a couple weeks in, she was talking about how this is kind of nice because I'm an introvert anyway. It just is kind of giving me that permission to be in the house. With me, it's bad. It's really bad. But, I practice positive psychology. I, have friends that I'm trying to find different ways, like I've been talking about. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. I think every human being is doing it a little bit differently because we come from different, we have different tools in our toolbox for dealing with things. And then, for me, I've really had to pull a lot from my toolbox of, what's working well, where's the gratitude, how do I get through this well? And that it's been hard even as an extrovert. So I would say extroverts probably are having a harder time than the introverts. And I've seen that in some of the writings.
Okay, Kathi. Our next question is wondering, is there something I should watch for to monitor my own level of loneliness?
Yeah. So I know that there actually is a test out there. I'm not really that familiar with it. I think it's like USMLE or something. You can look up loneliness test, but I think your friends are probably going to be talking to you about it. If you feel like crying a lot, and I'm not like, I felt like crying. I mean, Hoda broke down on national TV crying. I mean, we are deeply hurt right now, and we are experiencing like overwhelming, like, emotions that people just haven't, because nobody in this has really very, very few, I should say, in modern time pandemic. And so this is a big deal for us. And so it's okay to be kind of overwhelmed and to feel really, really sad. But if that continues, if you're not getting out of bed, so those are things that, this is kind of the medical part coming out. Those are really signs of depression.
Thank you.
Yeah. How are we doing?
Kathi, sure, I have another question for you. Can you tell us the point between getting enough information and getting too much information? I think the person wants to know, how do you know when you're well-informed versus you're on media overload?
That is a question that is absolutely loaded. I just, I don't have time to field a lot of stuff. Somebody just posted on Facebook that somebody I admire a lot, and it was like an 8-minute video, and I wanted to watch the whole thing so that I could say it's good or it's not good. So far, it's looking pretty good. But I would ask a medical person, if you have anybody that practices medicine, talk to them. I would not talk to other people that are not in the practice of medicine unless they're very well versed in it. I would use the venues that I showed you, and I would incredibly limit the amount of venues, news channels, and be careful with Facebook. Like the video I saw was on Facebook and actually looked really good. And I'm probably going to go on sometime in the next day or two and just comment on, you know, it's actually really accurate information. But I see so much fear in people. I'm grateful for my background. And so I think as people like me, we all need to be readily available and helping all of our family and friends to get through this. So ask somebody that you know and trust in medicine. I know there's a lot of, there's video calls you can do with your doctor. You can send your doctor an email. If you don't have a doctor, you know, try a medical friend. I would limit it. I don't have a particular time, like in a day's time, how much, because I personally want to be informed. But like today, my TV hasn't been on all day. I don't think anything, you know, somebody will let me know if, you know, something changes that's really horrible. But how's it feel in your body? How are you feeling in your body? Is it creating like more anxiety? Is there anybody that can just like totally field all of the information and you stay completely away from it and let somebody else field it for you for a while?
I think that's a great suggestion, Kathi. As somebody who lives with high anxiety, that is a strategy I take on, that I have a trusted person who helps me to that I can check in with, who understands how to best deliver the information to me. And so he takes on more of the burden of catching a wide net of gathering information and then dispels to me what is most needed to know so I can hold my energy for what I need to get done at work.
Yeah, and you're right, Elizabeth. We need to hold our energy because we're going to get sick. And one of the things that I didn't mention, but you know, when we're lonely, it decreases our immunity. It changes our genetic expression, and it just does. And when that happens, we're more likely to get cancer. Cancer will be progressive, and we're more likely to get a virus. And so we need to really keep ourselves in check. Do that meditation that Asian Braun does, and just do the, you know, mindfulness, the body scans, and just check in with your body. Are you hurting? Are you stressed? You know, are you eating well? And, you know, how can you get, you know, more sleep?
Kathi, how can families that are in quarantine together balance the togetherness and the need to kind of step away and create their own space?
Oh my gosh, that is so, so tough. I mean, everybody just has to do what they're comfortable with. And we have to remember, this is a little bit medical, but as far as the loneliness aspect of it, I know people are just being so creative, like the caravan that I saw. But if you're in a house, you have to make sure that, you know, a medical doctor has said you have like a baby that shouldn't be near it, or an elderly person, or somebody with cancer. And so those people just have to be totally away. I mean, my parents are in their 80s, and so there's just strict instructions. I mean, just absolutely nobody can go near them. They're sequestered right now because they just traveled, and so it was unavoidable. So I would say that you can use FaceTime. A lot of people are using FaceTime. I don't know. I think there's a lot of creative things out there that you can just do some surfing and see, you know, what are people doing that's been helpful, as far as, you know, if you're in another room with the door shut, you know, like maybe one parent might, you know, put things in and out and then clean up, but the kids can't come in and they can't see that parent who's got, you know, COVID-19 positive in the bedroom, who's in there for 2 weeks. And so, you know, just really FaceTiming and doing it often, and just being supportive. Good question, though. Thanks.
Kathi, another question came in. The person says, it sounds like you really know how to work from home. I'm struggling with that transition. Do you have any tips for making that change to help make sure that I don't experience loneliness?
Yeah. We can't guarantee you're not going to experience loneliness. I don't know that I'm expert about it, but I've actually had this conversation with one of my coworkers who, you know, we're both out there, we're both here now, like home, her home, my home. And so like last week I was a slug, I was really in trouble and I didn't, you know, get out like I should have. And then this week, like I killed it. And like almost every day I'm just killing it and doing really, really good outside time. And then now she's having a little bit of difficulty. So this is going to be baby steps. It's okay to get in a slump temporarily, but the number one thing I think is when you get out of bed, get a routine. I do my morning coffee, I drink a bunch of water, and you know, when I wake up, I put my morning exercise clothing on, pull my hair back, and I know when I come downstairs, I'm going out that door and I'm going to go get something outside. It could be on the 7 o'clock hour, 8 o'clock or whatever, but so that starts it. The second I get out of bed, I make my bed every time. And then, you know, just the regular morning things. And then Fazil Khan has a really good video out on, he's the #1 Extraordinary Life. If you go on to LinkedIn, you can do One Extraordinary Life, and he has a series of videos that talks about how to get through the day, how to take, you know, refreshing breaks is what he calls it, something where you take a break through the day. I think that what happens, we need to take some baby steps, allow us not to be perfect, and then once we take these baby steps, it's going to get easier and easier as we go, which is what happened with me is that it got easier and easier to, you know, do the mountain and the 50, you know, flights of steps, and all that stuff got easier as time went on. And so I think you're going to find that. I think that sometimes writing things down and sticking to it and say, okay, from, you know, 10 to 12, I'm going to check my email, and then, you know, you go for 2 or 3 hours without doing any of that. Avoid alcohol. That's probably going to be one of the #1 things. You know, alcohol is, sorry, any of you, alcohol is pouring out the, you know.
No alcohol, no ice cream? What crisis?
Right? And don't be afraid to just laugh and be happy, and don't be afraid to be sad and cry. You know, these are challenging times, and, you know, we're all in this together, and just make sure that you do have some friends that you connect with, and we'll do some check-ins with you. But thanks for that question. I think it's an excellent question, and I hope you find your pathway to, you know, getting a routine.
Linda is asking us to repeat the meditation link. I can take a look online and see if I can pull that up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or if you want to flip back to that slide that had that up there, so people can see that.
Where was he at? He went away. There he is, guided meditation. Can you guys see it okay? I'm not sure how, I know you can copy and paste things into the chat.
Here, I'll put his name in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for asking. I actually, like I said, I went to Perth specifically to meet Ajahn Brahm, I understand is how you say it. And it was very challenging because I wanted to meet him because he was so lovely and soothing that I rented a car, drove on the opposite side of the car, opposite side of the road, on a highway, down to the city that he was in once I got from the airport. So it was real important to meet him. It's really good. I hope you enjoy it. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, we have another question that just came in. People use lately a term toxic positivity. When do you think positivity turns toxic?
Oh gosh, I don't have an answer for that. I haven't heard of toxic positivity, but I've heard of naysayers with positive psychology. I think that we we who practice positive psychology, we look at our strengths. Now, let me just tell you that one of my main strengths is forgiveness. You know, I wrote my scholarly project on forgiveness, and so I don't know that it was toxic, but you know, there's a balance. And so for me, I can forgive a little bit too much, and then what happens is that I can end up making bad decisions along the way because I've forgiven, just let things go and move forward. But you know, there's really a balance as to how much I should forgive. I'm trying to be in front of my camera, sorry. How much I should forgive to keep a balance there from being abused. And so as in anything, it's always going to be a balance. People make fun of Pollyanna, but you know, we know that Pollyanna had a really great way that she used her skills to kind of mediate difficult situations, like the whatever game, the happiness game or whatever it was she had. You know, there's nothing wrong with that because it helped her get through a hard time. So if you are really being open and honest and thinking about the situation, then you're probably going to be okay. But if it's like an ostrich that you're burying your head in under the pretense of, you know, laughter and positive psychology, it's just not going to work and it'll be bad for you. I think Carrie and Elizabeth are experts in positive psychology, so maybe they have something to say about that.
Well, this is Elizabeth. In my work, we're looking at the financial impact of COVID-19 on people who already live at very low income levels. And as we explore ways that we can use positive psychology to help bolster some of what people are feeling, some of the uncomfortable feelings, we find it to be very important to strike a balance between helping people use positive psychology as a tool to face what is going on so that they can have greater fortitude to use other financial tools to address the financial side. We don't view it as a way to make everything better. And I think that's one place where folks sometimes feel like, well, this is all sounds very happy and go lucky, but it's not meant to fix everything. Positive psychology is, in my point of view, really there to help us bridge the gap between feelings that are very uncomfortable and demotivate us and getting past those feelings so that we can address serious things that are going on in our life.
Carrie?
In my work, I work with community college students, and we use positive psychology to build agency, a sense of agency and self-efficacy. But we always make sure to refer to realistic optimism, so not rose-colored glasses, not, oh my gosh, I have hope, I have faith, everything's going to be okay. But like Elizabeth mentioned, using it to create realistic motivation and the ability to move forward. I think that might be it, Kathy.
Yep, that completes the questions.
Cool, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to add also that positive psychology doesn't mean that we don't deeply, deeply feel our emotions and our hurts and our pain. If we don't feel them deeply, if we don't totally address them, if we don't go through them, then that is toxic. And so I think that sometimes people get that a little bit confused that, oh, something bad happened, let me just be positive all of a sudden. That is not what we do. We go into it and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sad, I'm so hurt, and it's that person's time, however long it takes for them to move through their own particular situation. So, okay, well, listen, unless there's anything else, I really, really appreciate everybody being on the call, and we're not in this alone. You know, call a friend if you are feeling sad, and again, thank you, Carrie and Elizabeth.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.